All right. How about Jean? Can you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, Jean. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Let's see. Randy, can you lead us in the four-way pact?
Absolutely. The four-way pact and the way we interact with others, personal accountability and with courage.
I will be kind in the way I tell. I will be fair and not seek selfish advantage. I will have one heart, no mind.
Jack, can you lead us in the invocation?
Think of our heads. Dear God, we give thanks for this beautiful day and for the guests that are with us. We ask a blessing on the Rotarians here and around the world and the projects that they're involved with. Bless this food and this meeting to our use. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Please be seated.
One time. Some other. Before we get. We're kind of unique.
Oh, well,
Which is good. We'll find out about us. So this is where we so much.
Whatever is left over, not just at our table.
Oh,
Yeah, whatever's left over in each table.
All right, Mike, can you introduce the guests at your table?
Hi.
Rosemary, can you introduce the guests at your table?
Very happy to introduce Pat and Tom the manager. They are teaching a couple of friends at St. Marceline Church. Before that, Pat was a special education assistant at District 54. And Tom retired after 34 years will come back. And a man who needs no introduction at all. Is my husband, Chief Justin, is the charter president of the Morning AM.
Thank you. We're here. Pat, can you introduce your guest?
I'm pleased to introduce my husband, Ken. He's here to learn more about polio. He's only been hearing about it for 35 years.
Right.
Wendy
Or
was
Wendy
doing
will
it.
do it.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was, I mean, a can.
Everyone, this is Chris. She's here from Rotary International to talk polio.
Is over there. Any infants? Line up.
Hi, friendly club. Okay, so I'm not here to take your money. Yes, that comes later on in the show. But as you all, we finished a great fundraiser thanks to Holly and all of her hard work with the help of Tom Ghosh. And I want to give Holly a lot of kudos. Let's give Holly another big round of applause for all the work she did. Many of you know that coming up in May will be a little event our club will be in which our club is participating called the Classic. The committee has already been working hard on behalf of the club. I've been in this club for a couple years, and I've been on a couple of committees. This is the best group of people on the committee with whom I've ever dealt with. And I'd like to have all the committee members please stand who are present. Nancy, come on, George, Gail, Barry. Well, Barry's not here, so someone, present it. Oh, Barry standing. They're doing a great job. So what we were trying to do this year is to really hit it out of the park. One of the things we're trying to do is, last year we had 224 people. We're trying to at least double that, and maybe we will market the event to people saying, make your reservations early because there's only 500 seats available. So we have a theme, the hotel's working with us hand in hand, and it'll be a great event. One of the things I mentioned in the past, there's a number of Rotarians who have adult children. Have your children come, have them bring their friends. I know Nancy does that every year. One of my daughters is sending out a save the date card to all of her friends. Let's bring in all these people who are of that age, have a great time. So enjoy your meal, and Unfortunately for the rest of you, you'll see me again later today. Happy Halloween is coming up, so have a great Halloween. In honor of Halloween, I put some candy out there because I don't like tricks, I like treats. So there are your treats. If you need some more, I have some more candy, so let me know. The other treat I'm looking for is to help with Shop with a Cup. We have an ambitious goal and we're doing very well so far. The deadline is the 11th, no, it's the 9th of November, and we will be presenting the check on the to Sergeant Mark on the 11th. So I sent out an email today, trick or treat email, and the link to donate is out there. 20, 50, any amount you'd like. If you donate $100 or more, I will donate an additional $25. So please go out and donate there. Also, on Wednesdays, Pat does a nice job with the Wednesday email. So on there is also a link. So we appreciate anything you can get. Just want to go down. Gene Schlinkman, Bill Kelly, Nancy Redmond, Eileen, Jack Lucas, Roger Smith, Darrell Boone, Gene Walters, Bruce Stopke, Jim Fabrini, Bonnie and Jim McCullough, and Gail Vanderberg have donated money so far. So, you know, if you can, we would appreciate anything you can give. Thank you.
Well, I have some sad news. A past member of ours, Bill Summentackle, is now in hospice. I talked to his wife, Marie, the other day, and sounds like he only has maybe a few days to stay with us. If anybody would like to give Marie a call, I have the phone number. And I don't, from what she's told me, he's going to be cremated. And maybe celebration of life will come later. Yes,
Can you give the phone number to Pat so she can send it out to the entire club?
I can do that. But if anybody needs it, not, yes,
And I'd be happy to put it in the buzz.
okay. So I'll give you that information. You can go from there.
Well, something on a little bit more positive note. I wasn't here last Friday because I was part of a 5-member team to promote bringing the Rotary International Convention to Chicago in 2030. Historically, we get it every 25 years, and we're the only city bidding on 2030. So we'll find out in January. But we had the selection committee was Vicki Pulse, who's a current director from Reno, Nevada. Estella Warner, who's from Argentina, John Smarge, past director, and he was also Ian Risley's presidential aide, and 2 members from Rotary International, Shannon Watson and Nabil Hassani. We were going from 8 in the morning to 10 at night, showing them everything about Chicago. This is the bid packet that we gave them. So if anyone is interested in seeing this, I think only one person here would be interested. If you want to see it back, here's our agenda for the week. We gave them gifts, some Frangelman, some other information. They all got a mug from Gigi's Playhouse. They all got a signed cookbook from Art Davis. Anyone know who Art Davis is? Yeah, he's a chef. He has a restaurant now in Navy Pier that we ate there on Friday. And we had more food left after we finished eating than we ate. Oh yeah, and he stood us up. Some lady named Oprah called. He was Oprah's private chef for 10 years. So we gave everyone in the selection committee a signed cookbook by him. I also purchased one. It'll be in the classic. So we will have one of the gifts at the classic will be a signed cookbook by Art Davis.
Apparently Oprah Studio is haunted, but aside from that, are we looking to have it from Schaumburg or Chicago?
Well, when they're bringing 40,000 people, possibly, there was 40,000 in 2005. We're budgeting anywhere between 20 and 40,000. We'll take over McCormick Place. We'll also, we took them to Navy Pier, show them what can be done at Navy Pier. So we had showed them quite a bit of Chicago. I was staying at the Intercontinental Hotel downtown. Our selection committee was at the Marriott on Michigan Avenue across the street. But it was quite intense, everything that we did for those 2.5 days. So hopefully everyone will be at the 2030 convention. Yes.
Contact, like the mayor's office, right?
Yeah, Mayor Lightfoot did a video for us, inviting people to come in 2030. We had things from our governors did that. So we had a lot of recommendations from a lot of the dignitaries of Chicago and our state. So it was great. We also had a tour on Friday of Paul Harris's home. That was the first time I've ever been there, and they've refurnished it to make it look like it was, and then like 100 years ago. So it's something that we might want to look at, is going there, and they did an addition to it. So they have a nice room where you can do conferences. And so that's where we met. But then you would go inside and see how it was set for like 1910, 1920. So, yes.
What cities are we competing with?
We are competing with no one. So since we get it every 25 years, but we did the same process. Now I talked to the selection committee. They're also now taking bids for 29, 31, and 32. And there are 12 cities competing for those 3 years. I think they did us first because then they could just say that no one's getting 30. But we showed them a lot of time. We took them on a helicopter ride to Chicago. So there's fortunately our district and 6450 and 6420. Kathy Quad Hess, a PDG from there. Well, she was governor with Julie. She was part of our committee that we just took them all around Chicago. Yes. It'll be at the January board meeting. So we were getting phone calls the last couple weeks every day. We were working with Choose Chicago. We had a private tour to Willis Tower. We had a lot of different things that normally you wouldn't get access to. Thank you.
Okay, the sign-up sheet is going around again for our holiday party. It's 3 weeks until we have to give a count. So I'd like to see some more names of people coming. And this is our best party of the year. So we have great entertainment again. So the sheet's going around, and if you sign there and you don't sign on the computer, I'll sign you up on the computer. Yes, yes.
One last announcement. Bill Landwehr resigned this past week due to his and more importantly Mimi's health. So if you know them, send them some happy messages. I didn't want him to resign, but.
Does anybody know what's wrong with the Mimi that's struggling?
I believe Mimi is struggling. I do not know any details at all. I really don't need to know. But if you know them, I would contact them. All right, on that note, anybody happy? Nobody's happy. Nancy's happy.
I'm happy. It was fun.
Rosemary.
I'm happy because I have 3 wonderful people accompanying me to lunch today. I'm also happy because I spent 6 days in Fort Lauderdale with my daughter and my granddaughter. Fabulous time.
Yeah.
I have 19 happy dollars for the point spread on last Monday's surprise victory for the Bears.
Pat, can you collect? Rachel's got it. All right, Pete?
My Rosie was gone, I had 6 happy days.
Jack?
I have $10 happy dollars. This morning at 1:30 in the morning, our second great granddaughter was born.
George?
Okay. Let me see if I can get this straight. So today's the 28th, but tomorrow the 29th.
Very good.
I'm celebrating my 28th wedding anniversary with church. Sorry, 28 happy. Christy.
I just got back from Florida and we survived in really well compared to what a lot of people did. So very thankful.
Anybody else happy? Anybody else happy? Gene?
So I have 2 happy dollars for my daughter, because she just got accepted in an audition for a play musical this week. And the Nutcracker is, they are selling tickets now for the first and second weekend in December at the Prairie Arts Center. I have 2 happy dollars because I'm very happy for our trunk or treat. Linda and I did yesterday. We had probably like 700 people came through. That was really cool. The 2 happy dollars because it's Halloween on Monday. It's one of my favorite holidays. And I'm very, very extra happy. So I'm going to add $1 to that because I'm very extremely happy that Alan Gabe decided to show up in drag today for Halloween costume.
Anybody else happy? Holly?
I'm $5 happy because I have no more announcements.
All right, anyone else? Going once, what twice? Queen of Hearts, it's over, well, it's over $8,000. Woo! I don't know the exact.
I give you the exact number. Okay.
All right, let's see if the sound works. And Lauren wins.
All right, the lowest one is 19.
Hold on. He's always told me if he's not here.
This is the second time you've done this for him, and it was 19. He's gonna be so mad.
Can I take 2?
I can't hear you.
Speaking of 19.
41 is 8, right? Four sevens.
Four diamonds.
Don't tell Lauren Gordon. Tell Lauren. How about 19 zips?
So Chris, what we do is take the lowest number.
Enjoy your lunch.
Everybody feels really bad.
Sort of poems.
This one? That's 36. So rather than get rid of the word, we change it to the.
Terry Clark.
So what happened? Yeah. So what do you do?
In other governments as well. So you just, you'll see. You have sort of
Should go on.
I had to take it. You know what? It's really it's right now. This one And all the guests. All friends of ours. Everybody gets friends, brought a friend. And that's like nothing else. Today. I know there's.
So you have one, there's three, and you
Yeah, so many. Rosemary. Two chicken nuggets. I usually do like.
but thousands.
Still married.
No. Well, his wife very few. This is really upset. Is that procedure that's going by?
Well, they've shown it. They've shown it. Of it just, and it's like it keeps getting like maybe. Yeah, that's true. I mean, Giselle, what? Leaving it.
When you think about it, this is one of the big tragedies, right? 2 years ago, and then it's not for 2 more years.
Yeah.
Why did you not yet? She's probably not ready.
Why did she see your graduation?
Oh, yeah. It's not orange.
They were both pretty successful.
Well, no, when they got married, she was.
Yeah. Yeah, because there is, but I really wanted in the world, maybe.
We're not on the water.
What's your bet?
Yeah.
Everybody, you're the president.
It's time for our illustrious fine master who's going to part us with our money.
So for those people who are guests today, welcome. We have, as I've told you many times, we have three major fundraisers: the Classic on the 6th, then the Marriott Holiday Drawing that was included last week, and then me. So Gene Walters, you'll collect because you're gonna pay $2. You know, your happy dollars don't have the same punch they used to have. They're far way down on the job, Gene. People look forward to it. So $2. Who else wants to be a collector? Anastasia, since you're talking, why don't you be a collector? And Gary, why don't you be a collector? Speaking of Gary, I hope he brought his checkbook today. So Gary's entree today was the Butterfield candy. What is it? Butterfield, okay. So, but that isn't what I'm finding him for. He was looking at his phone, and we all know the rule is if you're using your phone, that's a $5 fine. And then he said to me, "Oh, I'm looking on my calendar to see if I'm available for the Rotary convention here in 2030. So I'm not quite sure that falls within the 4-way test, Gary. So that'll be $5. If you didn't bring clothes today for Pat's event, that'll be $2. If you don't have a guest at your table, that's hard to believe, but that'll be $2 a person. If you're not wearing Rotary attire today for this great event, listen to Chris, that'll be $2 a person. Also, in addition to that, if you're not wearing Rotary attire that your wife or spouse or significant other, that's especially made for you, like my wife did the sweater, that'll be another $2. If you're going to a Halloween party to celebrate your wedding anniversary, that'll be $2. So Rosemary, I'm confused. You know, you're doing the buzz, and you know, the buzzers don't get fined for general fines, but I have to do a specific one. You start it up. I have somebody here who needs no introduction. And then you introduce them. Well, which is it? Does he need an introduction or does he not need an introduction? So Pete, you know, I don't usually find guests, but I'm not gonna find Rosemary, so Pete, pay $5. If you're not donated to Shops with the Cop, that'll be $5. We're trying, I put Gene Schlinkman in touch with, the woman who runs the Poplar Creek Bowl, because Marriott Hotel is not doing it anymore, and she jumped in both feet, so it looks like Shop with the Cop will be at the, Poplar Creek Bowl. Mike Erickson. I thought Chris was the program today, not you. Yeah, that's fine. He doesn't do Fun and Frolic, so that'll be $2. And Gary, excuse me, what's your name? Brian? Trying to usurp my authority, that'll be $2. Bears fans, you know, that was a great victory. It was. But I felt so bad for Bill Belichick because, you know, if he would have won, he would have broken the record, the second place record for the most wins with George Hallis. So for all Bears fans, that'll be $2.
Is he playing Detroit soon?
Yeah, they'll be Detroit. Yeah. Detroit, you know, I keep telling people I grew up in Detroit, we don't have a professional football team. So, as you all know, they've won one playoff game in 53 years. Jack Lucas. Jack, Wendy and my alma mater is playing Jack's alma mater tomorrow. I want 50 points, Jack. So you're not going to have to pay a fine, but just 50 points, we have a bet. Anybody who moved into a new office or new office building in the last 3 months, that'll be $2 each. Bruce, would you stand up, please? Now, Bruce has the right attitude. Halloween, he has a Halloween shirt on. I hope that's why you wore it today. I hope it wasn't because if the lights went out, we could still see. So everybody here who's not wearing something for Halloween, that'll be $3. So of course, Gene Walters, one of 3 Genes in our club, and Bruce don't have to pay that fine, but everybody else $3. Except Randy, because, you know, obviously he doesn't wear that outfit to work. Late, if you're late, that'll be $2. Where's Don Miner? So he came late to leave early. So anybody who knows Don Miner, paid $2 because he was late. And Ken, you know, normally I don't, that's a lot. So I'm standing there talking and you were talking to your beautiful bride, and you walked up and completely ignored me. You know, I've been ignored by a lot of better people than you, so why don't you contribute $5? And I was talking to Chris at the table today, she's really interesting, so all of you pay attention, because if you don't, I'll remember. Have a great weekend.
There we go, we just pulled that out.
We're just gonna do shot now. Well, perfect is the right office. That's fine,
What happened was Gary, Wendy, George.
You know, one who knows how to contact November 3rd.
Well, let's do it.
Oh, there's that.
I would not.
Well, I saw it yesterday. This is really. You can't reach it. No.
It is very much my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Chris Zhao from Rotary International in Evanston. And she has been working with Polio Plus for almost all of her 28 years at Rotary. She is quickly catching up to my tenure at Rotary. And I've had the pleasure of working with her through the years and watching her involvement grow and her understanding increase. And so it is my pleasure to turn the mic over to Chris.
Sorry. Oh, wait, back.
Thank you so much for that really warm and lovely introduction, Pat. It's nice to be here. I was last here actually in 2019, right before the pandemic, also to do a polio update. It's great to have a chance to be back with you again. There has been a lot that has happened since that time. We'll get started and go right in. It's good to be here today. Today happens to be the anniversary of Jonas Salk's birthday. And you probably all know that Jonas Salk was the inventor of one of the two polio vaccines that are still used today. It's also Bill Gates' birthday. So it's sort of an interesting, many parts of the world actually celebrate today as World Polio Day, even though here in the US, we celebrated World Polio Day earlier this week. We'll just call it World Polio Week. So I want to start off with just a quick refresher on how far we've come since Rotary first had the vision of a polio-free world. Rotary started, in fact, Pat was even telling me that she was part of those very early efforts. We started our Polio Plus campaign back in 1985. Pat was working on it already in 1984. And then the big public health agencies of the world, notably the World Health Organization, all kind of caught up with Rotary and said, all right, let's launch this as an official goal in which is why the date you see here, that was the launch of the Global Polio Eradication Initiative. At that time, all those countries in red, so 125 countries around the world, still had polio endemic. And there were roughly 1,000 children being paralyzed by polio every day. Nearly every member of a Rotary Club would have had some personal connection to it, either as having contracted the disease themselves, having a family member, friends. It was very much part of the collective consciousness of our membership at that time. And certainly, it was very compelling to think that, just with a couple of drops of vaccine that you could squeeze into a child's mouth, you could prevent somebody from that kind of lifelong paralysis. So fast forward to 2022, you see there are only 2 countries that are in red, very challenging countries. We're going to talk a little bit about them. That's Pakistan and Afghanistan. And you can see we have 20 million people walking now, thanks to all of the efforts of Rotary and partner agencies over the years that have passed. And just to give that number a little bit of context, because it's just a big number, right? What does that actually mean? The entire city of Beijing, if you think of every man, woman, and child in Beijing, that would give you a frame of reference, or the entire country of Chile has a population of around that. So kind of puts it in perspective of just what an accomplishment that is. So since the time since I was last year, we've launched a new strategy. And in part, we had to launch a new strategy with the pandemic, very complex. And we all know that even from our own experience here in the United States with how the virus traveled, how it stretched our health, how our health system was stretched in a country with all the resources that we have. You can imagine that in a place like Afghanistan, Pakistan, Sub-Saharan Africa, are places where really difficult campaigns were paused. It's actually a real pride that the polio force and infrastructure that we have in a lot of countries around the world pivoted when polio campaigns had to be paused so that they could help COVID response, and they continue to support the vaccine distribution. There's something that we have learned over many years of doing campaigns in countries around the world, is that we know how to get vaccine out to communities and wherever those might be. So this new strategy did a couple of things. All of the practices that we've learned over the years, but then because we're working in really the most difficult places in the world, the challenge in these are countries that need more than polio, right? So part of the challenge is that we keep hitting them with polio vaccine, and they say, but yes, I don't have clean water, I don't have access to nutrition. You need to help us with this. So this new strategy has integrated activities, really trying to work with water and sanitation initiatives, for example, to try to address multiple needs of these communities that are typically very, very underserved. So, the key goals of the strategy are to interrupt transmission in those last 2 countries. And then also, continued to see some, because we had pause campaigns during COVID, and because there are many countries that have very weak health infrastructure, weak health systems, not enough health workers, there have been further setbacks. So we have seen, and you may have even seen in the news, that there are roughly 25 million children that have never received a dose of any sort of vaccine, polio or any other vaccine, in large part because of the setbacks that have been. So now with this new strategy, trying to make sure that we hit all of those children, there's a 0-dose strategy, basically designed to try to reach those kids who have never been reached with any other intervention. And with those things in mind, we hope to stop transmission in Afghanistan and Pakistan, and also stop it in countries where there are outbreaks. So this image you see on the screen is actually for polio campaigns that are being held just within this past week in Afghanistan. You probably heard in the news that there was a troop withdrawal in Afghanistan, and so there was a big question mark. What's going to happen? You know, what does this mean for polio eradication efforts? You know, the Taliban's taken over, and what will that mean? I'm happy to say that it's been a bit of a surprise for everybody. But even before the troop withdrawals, one of the biggest issues in Afghanistan were security concerns. And in fact, the polio program was prohibited from conducting some of the activities because polio campaigns, they go house to house ideally, and they will mark a house if the kids have been vaccinated or if they haven't been vaccinated. So that the idea being is that a health worker comes back to that house, talks to the parents and persuades them to have their kid vaccinated. Well, you can imagine that in a security situation that the Taliban might be a little bit suspicious about why somebody's marking a house. And is that really for polio campaigns, or is there some other deeper motive behind that? So house-to-house campaigns had actually been banned in many parts of Afghanistan. So with the withdrawal of troops and the reduction of some of those security issues, we had nationwide access for the first time in 3 years. So we were able to reach roughly 30% of the kids that had never been reached during all that time. And those were huge pockets of vulnerability that allowed the virus to continue to be transmitted. So since the troop withdrawal, we've had campaigns. I think we're now on the 7th or 8th round of campaigns that we've had since the troop withdrawal, including this one that is shown on the screen. And maybe just a side note to say, you know, one of the challenges that we've had in Afghanistan throughout time is the conservative society there makes it difficult to reach families. You know, most of the health workers are men, but men can't enter a household. So there's been a significant effort undertaken to try to identify female health workers. And you actually see one sort of in the background of this picture, but it's hard to see her because she's in a full burqa. But this is sort of a really unique and I'd say quiet transformation, frankly, in countries like Afghanistan and Pakistan, where increasingly we're hiring female health workers because, of course, they're able to enter a household, talk to mothers, and vaccinate children. So that's another key element. And you know, we're actually seeing a lot of progress. We've only had 2 cases of polio in Afghanistan this year, and those are confined to a very, very small area. There's only 2 districts at the moment that have polio cases out of roughly 30. Similarly, in Pakistan, we're making progress. Pakistan is a much bigger country. I think it's like the 6th most populous country in the world. So you see it on the map, and it looks pretty tiny, but it's densely populated. And of course, it's been very difficult. Last year, we had the best year ever for cases in Afghanistan and Pakistan. There were only 6 cases in the entire world. And that is really the result of like massive efforts to keep trying to hit all of these kids in these challenging areas. In Pakistan in particular, one of the things that we take encouragement from is that there are only 4 districts. So it used to be that polio was circulating in roughly in Karachi, big reservoirs in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Now it's down to 1 area in the Northwest Frontier province. So it's out of 180 in the entire country. And gets a little technical, but you know, there are different lineages of the polio virus, and they've now reduced it. There's only 1 lineage that's still being transmitted in that area as well. So little by little, we are knocking it out. And you know, we have confidence that we're knocking it out because we also see that polio is not showing up in sewage and in the environment. Pakistan and Afghanistan now have the largest network of environmental sampling in the world, which is a nice cross-check on, you know, you expect to be seeing kids with potential paralysis, and that's one way you know if you're defeating the disease. If you find the number of kids you should expect to find. But then the other is kind of cross-checking it and seeing if that virus is circulating in the sewage. And they're not finding it in these reservoirs. So we have hope. We got to keep working on it, but we've got some hope. Now, I mentioned setbacks from COVID, and what you see on this map is the result of those setbacks. Basically, you know, if there are areas where people are not immunized, we will continue to see outbreaks. So the big ones have really been in Nigeria. I can't point to that. Let's see if I can get a cursor. Yeah, there we go. So with northern Nigeria, in Yemen, where activities haven't been conducted in the northern part of the country, which is held by the Houthis. It's been more than 12 months since access has been allowed to go in and immunize children there. And then Eastern Congo. And those three areas alone account for 90% of cases of outbreaks. Now, these outbreaks, you know, are a little bit complicated because the outbreaks actually come from a form of the vaccine. The oral vaccine is a live vaccine. And it has a risk that the benefit of it is that if you're immunizing with that oral vaccine, you can get herd immunity because you go in and you immunize all the kids. And it transmits just like the wild virus does, but that weakened form can give you immunity. Unfortunately, in areas where they don't hit enough immunization coverage, what happens is that over time, that live form of the vaccine can revert to a more paralytic form that acts just like a wild one, and it can infect kids. So that is what you are seeing in these areas, is that there are areas where immunization rates aren't high enough. And so, you know, it's the vaccine itself, they call it variant polio virus, that has reseeded, is reverted and mutated back to this wild form. A new tool to address that called the novel oral vaccine, novel oral polio virus, or novel oral polio vaccine, easy for me to say. And that vaccine has been tested genetically and is less likely to revert to that paralytic form. And what we're seeing is that once we can get in and we can vaccinate with that novel oral vaccine, we're bringing those outbreaks under control. I'll just draw your attention very quickly to this one down in the orange at the bottom. Those were actually wild virus that came all the way from Pakistan. So this was a real shocker because you don't expect to see virus that Pakistan all the way in Malawi. Started in Malawi and then it spread to Mozambique. So we've only had a handful of cases there. There's been a huge and quick response to try to bring that outbreak under control. But it's yet another example of polio anywhere is a risk everywhere. And with that, I'd actually remind everybody that you probably saw in the news this year that there was a case of polio found in New York. And so that's been the real wake-up call this year. And New York has found polio. It was a man who's 20 years old who has never been vaccinated and who lives in a community that is well known for being vaccine hesitant. They had a measles outbreak in this county about 5 years ago. So the immunization rates in this county are something like 37%. And you would want at least 80%. Like nationally, we're somewhere around 93%. And even that's a little bit down from where it used to be. But essentially, like we've all become a little bit complacent. You know, we kind of take the fact, you know, we all think like, polio, we haven't had that in this country for years. Well, we will see it again if people don't continue to vaccinate their kids. And the detection in New York, or the case in New York is an example of that. And of course, they found polio in the sewage in 4 different counties in New York. So, you know, it's definitely spreading. Fortunately, there haven't been any other cases. But the New York Department of Health declared a state of emergency, and they're working very hard to make sure that they bring their immunization rates up. Polio was also detected this year in London in the sewage. So all of these things are just really clear reminders to us that, like, it's not gone. You know, we sort of learned a little bit with COVID that, you know, a virus doesn't respect borders. It can show up anywhere. And unfortunately, you know, this is something that we have said in Rotary and in polio for years, that polio anywhere is a risk everywhere. And now we're, you know, the unthinkable has happened, and we're starting, you know, we've seen the virus show up in the United States. So we'll keep working on it. So we'll just pivot a little bit to what, you know, all of you are doing out in the world to make sure that we don't let polio come back. Obviously, the biggest one is our fundraising efforts. Rotary continues to do amazing work to raise funds and also to leverage all of the funds that you all raise at clubs to help encourage governments to invest in polio eradication. That's a huge element of our work, is to ensure that there is the political and the financial commitment. Governments still provide, I'd say, probably 50 to 60% of the funding. I hesitate a little bit there because actually, thanks to Rotary and then also our partners at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, that proportion is sort of shifted over time, so that Rotary and the Gates Foundation together provide a huge chunk of the funding for the global effort. We also do advocacy with country level governments to make sure that amidst competing priorities, they remain focused on the goal of polio eradication. You can imagine in a place like Pakistan or Afghanistan, that's challenging to do. Raising awareness about the need to finish the job and to keep people vaccinated. And of course, the volunteer work that is done on the ground in countries to get vaccine out to the kids, to support health workers in their efforts. So we'll just talk a little bit about this. Our fundraising efforts, you're probably well familiar with these, that, you know, any dollar that you give is matched by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation 2 to 1. So that, you know, is an amazing incentive to make your funds go further. Clubs are encouraged to raise at least $1,500 a year. And of course, districts ideally can also contribute towards that. And those funds are matched at 50 cents on the dollar. Thanks to all of these efforts over time, Rotary with the Gates Foundation match has provided $2.6 billion towards global polio eradication, which is pretty impressive. I'll show a little picture of just some of the recent advocacy, bringing other governments to the table. So we just had a big event last week at the World Health Summit in Berlin, Germany, where a number of governments, the German government in particular, helped host this and invited other governments to come and announce new pledges. So you can see the big figure on the dollar on the screen behind all of these various officials. They're from governments and agencies. $2.6 billion was raised. Coincidentally, I just recognize that now, that happens to be the same as what Rotary's given over the years, but this 2.6 billion is towards the 4.8 billion that's needed for the full strategy for 2022 through 26. So we still have work to do to both through our own fundraising and to get other governments to keep investing. And of course, our US government is the biggest one. They've contributed in the last year, they contributed over $240 million, and that's a large part thanks to the advocacy that Rotary does. I mentioned country level advocacy. You may have heard Pakistan had devastating floods. So you can imagine that they've got a lot of other priorities at the moment. So there's important work that Rotary does to help keep officials at all levels, from the federal level down to the community level, focused on the work that needs to be done to reach every last child. But this photo here is sort of a unique story. So the woman in the middle, you may or may not recognize, with the mask on, that's Jennifer Jones. She's the president of Rotary International this year. She made a special effort to go to Pakistan in August. This was a little before the floods happened. And really, it was a little bit less about political advocacy and more about advocacy with these female health workers that I was telling you about, who in some cases risk their personal safety because they're passionate about supporting children and doing something for their own country. They take a lot of pride and ownership in the work that they are doing on polio eradication. So Jennifer went over there to meet with the health workers, talk to them, hear their own perspective about the work that they are doing. And honestly, just to say thank you for the kind of the tireless effort and the dedication that they have to going out into communities and doing very labor-intensive work with families every day. I mentioned the volunteer engagement. This is a photo that shows some of our Rotarians in Nigeria. Nigeria, you may or may not know, was the last country to have endemic polio in Africa. And on the recent map that I showed you, they are one of the countries that has had a big outbreak. So Nigeria is the most populous country in Africa. So it continues to be a challenge to reach every child there, especially in some of the areas where there have been conflict and issues with Boko Haram, for example. So here you see the volunteers gathering, they've got the logistics, they've got their vaccine carriers getting ready to go out and do campaigns. And those campaigns have to continue so that we protect the gains that they worked so hard to achieve. And this is not a unique photo. I mean, we've got national polio plus committees in all of these countries where polio is still a possible risk. And so it's mostly throughout Africa, India, Pakistan, even Afghanistan. We have a very small, fragile presence, but the Rotarians are actively involved, working with their Ministry of Health and local health officials. Raising awareness, I mentioned that it was World Polio Day earlier this week on the 24th. And these photos were from an event that was held a week ago today in Geneva. So Rotary International, together with the World Health Organization, held a World Polio Day and Beyond session. You can actually go and find that online if you're interested in seeing it. So here again, you see President of Rotary International, Jennifer Jones, holding a panel discussion to talk about polio eradication and to share information about what Rotary is doing to bring us closer to a polio-free world. You see the Director General of the World Health Organization also speaking at that event, and he is everywhere. I think with all of the different health challenges between COVID and monkeypox and tuberculosis. So, I think it really speaks to the level of collaboration that, he felt it personally important to be with Rotary, raising awareness of polio eradication. And of course, it's once we get polio done, the resources and energy and infrastructure can be used to address other health challenges that we're all facing. So I'll just leave you with, I've kind of gone through this very quickly, but in terms of raising awareness, there's work that all of you can do that I would encourage you to do as you talk to people in your community, talk to your fellow Rotarians, your families. Remarkable progress story that you've all had a personal fingerprint on, and hopefully the work that Rotary has done. We live in an era where there is a new crisis every day. You turn on the news and it's Ukraine, famine someplace. There's always something new to divert our attention. So the fact that Rotary has remained so committed and that this partnership has endured the 1980s is really unique in this world. We are almost there, and we're going to get there. And there are very few global efforts that are that way, where you can actually say, like, we've made all this progress, we're going to finish it. Only smallpox has been done, and polio will follow it. I'm quite confident because Rotarians are committed to it. So I would encourage you to keep fighting the good fight. I'd be happy to answer any questions because I know I've gone through all of this very, very quickly. And I just thank you for your continued interest and support.
How did you convince the Gates Foundation to be on board with Rotary?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, that goes back, there was a Rotarian that did that, to be honest. There's a former Secretary of State of the state of Washington who was friends with Bill Gates Senior. So Bill Gates' father, and had a conversation with him, and one thing led to another, and that led to their first involvement back in 2007. So it really did come as a result of Rotary contact. Alas, not me.
Chris, you said there were 2 cases in Afghanistan. How many in Pakistan?
Pakistan's got 20. So unfortunately, we have seen an uptick this year. But again, it's a little bit of a mixed bag. Obviously, we don't want to see an uptick. But fortunately, we're taking heart in the fact that it's geographically focalized, and the number of lineages has decreased. So the floods obviously are something that is a little bit of a wild card, and that's been the thing with everything in polio eradication in all these years. It's like, you just never know what wild card is coming your way next. COVID, floods, natural disasters, but we've managed to overcome all of them so far everywhere in the world. So we're confident we'll get there.
Is there a way to incorporate polio vaccine with COVID, with other vaccines, like within the same vehicle, to accomplish?
Yeah, that's a great question. The polio vaccine is definitely unique, and I know there is sort of a research arm where they, research. I know they've researched patches, different things. One of the things that is unique about the polio vaccine is that it's an oral vaccine, and not many of them are oral, as you know. There's also a little bit of challenge with the COVID vaccine because that's typically, especially in developing countries, which really have yet to receive it like we have here. It requires a shot, and those tend to be targeted more towards adults than children. So that adds dimensions of challenge to getting it out. But certainly it would make a lot of sense. There are other vaccines where they are combined. Polio is not at the moment one of them. It's a great idea, though.
All right, thank you. Mom, that the good people at Gigi's Playhouse.
Nice, thank you. I love coffee, so I will use it. Good thing.
Thank you, Chris. Next week, we have Riley Anderson, Illinois Fire Safety. Talk to us about fire safety. Imagine that. All rise. Rise. Ed, can you lead us in the 4-way test?
The 4-way test, the things we think, say, or do first. Is it true? Is it concern?
Enjoy your Halloween weekend, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Better news. Here you go. Yeah, it's nice to have you. I will.
Right.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. Okay. Okay.